Welcome to the Visual Cast. Coming at you from California, I'm your host, Alon Hammer, aka Rem. The Visual Cast is a hybrid podcast where we sit down with some of the best, most interesting, and most exciting visual artists from all over the world. We chat about life, art, visuals, software, hardware, systems, spirituality. It's a fun time. And the guests also do a set where we get to dive into their computer, take a closer look at how they make art, how they perform art, really anything they want to share. We have arrived at episode 14, and we have a super special guest, Sharat Aithal, aka Binary Fragmentation. Sharat is a master game developer, a real-time guru, and a super authentic artist. He's worked on acclaimed games and performed at massive festivals around the world. He consistently creates projection maps and plays real-time generative content at an extremely high level. We chat about Sharat's life growing up in Saudi Arabia while retaining his Indian identity, playing Prince of Persia as a kid and being inspired to study computer science in Bangalore, his first job playtesting SmackDown vs. Raw on the PSP, developing a brand activation with interactive smells, working for Unity, getting deep into real-time visuals, and being inspired to use Magic Music Visualizer by VJing, who we interviewed on the channel a couple weeks back. Check it out over here. In the second part of the conversation, we jump into the ideology of computer science, spirituality, the contentedness that comes with performing, growing up with Hinduism and studying the Gita, and how the psytrance dance floor is a ceremony. For Sharats SET, we take a look at his unbelievable Unity patch and the way he uses it with projection mapping, shaders, and generative art, and an intro into his awesome Magic Music Visualizers patch. It was such an eye-opening and inspiring conversation with Sharat, and his insight into Hinduism and real-time visuals was extremely honoring to be part of. Don't forget to subscribe and like and share with anybody you think will enjoy this convo and showcase. And without any further ado, here's the Visual Cast.
The world is like a ride at an amusement park, and it's fun for a while. Some people have been on the ride for a long time, and they begin to question, is this real, or is this just a ride? And other people have remembered, and they come back to us, and they say, hey, don't worry, don't be afraid, ever, because this is just a ride.
The real-time graphics and the gaming kind of aspect of visuals and VJing, a man dear to my heart. Welcome to the podcast, Sharat.
Thank you, Alon. It's been a pleasure, and I've been watching a lot of the Visual Cast, and it's a pleasure to be here.
Hell yeah, dude! It's really my honor. It's been a while since we've seen each other. But we were just talking right before about, hope maybe, who knows, we'll see each other this year.
Yes.
But the time that we spent together was very powerful and solidified our friendship in a strong way.
For sure.
So let's jump right into it. Sharat, besides for being an absolutely genuine, authentic gem of a human being, you're also a master game developer and software engineer. You build applications and shaders for VJing at an extremely high level. You have been performing at bigger and more impressive festivals in the past few years. Your style of audio reaction, real-time, and frequency surfing visuals is something spectacular to experience live. So I want to ask you, how do you manage such different, seemingly contrasting types of work, and where do they meet up?
That's a really good question. So I think Facebook has these small updates that keep coming. Memories from 10 years ago, memories from 8 years ago. So one thing that really popped up was how I actually started this project like almost 8 years ago, and it was really awesome because for me, I come from a computer science background. I did engineering and basically started building games, which was kind of my passion. And from that, what actually came out was a small indication of building a full frequency analyzer. And once I did that, I connected it to a few game objects and got them to react to music. That really got me intrigued, and I started building on top of that. I showed it to a couple of my friends, and they said, hey, you need to actually try this out at larger gigs. So I started showcasing that. And what came to me was the fact that I have two personas. One is the game developer that basically makes games during the day, and the other one is binary fragmentation that basically does visuals at night. And it's a really crazy journey that I can say for the past 8 years, how I've kind of evolved from doing stuff from like Photoshop all the way up to actually 3D modeling right now. Because as such, I was a programmer, but I completely got into 3D modeling, and I use Blender quite a bit right now. And
Nice.
yeah, I can say that it's been a crazy transition.
It's awesome. So you're a nerd by day and a super psychedelic imager by night.
When yeah. In fact,
Still a
really
nerd.
crazy.
You're still a nerd. Still a nerd at night, but just a different type.
Exactly. Like I keep trying out these new things. In fact, there's one post that I put on Instagram a couple of weeks ago. It's just a 7-second clip. I can't imagine that within 4 weeks it actually got 100K views. I was
Wow,
like, whoa.
that's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
And
Well,
I didn't kind of try and push that in any medium as such. Hey, share this, but it's just getting shared,
it
and I keep
resonated.
getting. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's something that actually I had a vision. I brought that to life, and then it came to be like one of the most viewed videos on my Instagram profile. I can't fathom the truth.
Yeah, it's very hard to know what's gonna resonate with people, and
Yeah.
like what I was saying in your intro, you're just a very authentic and real person. I think that people like yourself, the more you embrace your authenticity and just your kind of who you are, then the more people acknowledge that and want to see that more, and that's like those viral moments instead of like setting it up perfectly for like what the algorithm is going to want. You just follow your true self, and the spoils of that will come.
Yeah.
Sharat, you grew up in Bangalore, correct? In India? You're an Indian
Actually,
man?
no.
No? Okay.
I grew up in Saudi Arabia, which
No
is
way. Oh, actually,
yeah.
I think we've spoken about this before. I did Facebook, deep dive, and on your Facebook it says Bangalore, India. So,
Okay, so I did my engineering and stuff from there, but my
copy.
my schooling was in Saudi Arabia. Yeah.
Is that where
So
where your family's from Saudi Arabia?
no, we're from India. We're from so my dad, he was stationed out in Saudi Arabia. So we're staying there.
I got it. I got it. So,
it was it
military?
was a really cool. No, he was a structural
Stay.
engineer, and he worked on a lot of things. Like he's actually worked on a lot of really killer projects. He actually worked on the Bahrain Formula One course.
Wow. That's cool. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So, because currently you're in Copenhagen, I would love to
Yeah.
hear that kind of India slash Saudi Arabia to Europe, Copenhagen. Yeah, what was it kind of like growing up in in a place like India and a place like Saudi Arabia? Very different from where you're currently living. Very different from where I'm living. It's always interesting to kind of hear people's stories of where they grew up, and also are there things and elements within that experience of you growing up that you find inspires you in your visuals? Some things from your past. I do want to, at the end, after your set, talk a little bit about Hinduism and kind of like, the different ideals behind it. But just as like an overview kind of thing, like growing up in such a unique place like India and then going to such a unique place like Copenhagen, what's your experience been like there?
Well, I can say my childhood in Saudi Arabia was a kind of a really mixed emotions because one thing is, at a time in which Saudi Arabia was not the best, I would say, for being receptive of
Foreigners.
immigrants. And
Yep.
yeah, it was kind of a rough time, but we did have a lot of fun with our own friends. Like in fact, one of my best friends, she didn't go to the Indian school, so I actually went to the Indian school. She went to the American school, but she was
Uh-huh.
Indian, and I kind of mixed with a lot of Americans over there. So kind
Mm.
of for me, it was a very I would say a really killer experience because we had TV shows that were aired in the US that was actually airing over there in Saudi Arabia as well because of the military station that they had. It's called Aramco.
Uh,
So they were actually airing all the latest movies, the latest TV series that were out. So I actually ended up watching Knight Rider and
that's awesome. You got a good dose of American culture.
exactly, exactly.
Yeah.
That was really cool. In fact, actually have you seen this thing called Takeshi's Castle? It's a game show from Japan, and that was actually aired on the Saudi network, but with Arabic people narrating the whole experience. It was really funny to actually look at that because when I came to India, the same show was relaunched, but with an Indian guy actually speaking it out.
That's so funny. That's so
Yeah.
funny.
So yeah, the thing is, what I saw in as TV shows in Saudi Arabia, when I came back to India, those TV shows started airing in India as well. So it's kind of like I was stuck in that one capsule, moving from one zone to the other. But
Mm.
when I moved to India, that was a completely different thing because I had to relearn a lot of things. Like me being an Indian is not just but being around Indians is what
Yeah.
is and that was the atmosphere of India. Kind of for the first few years for me was kind of like, man, people are going to just eat me alive. But yeah, for me, the craziest thing is like I really like to interact with a lot of people, kind of get to know them, like like how we met as well, and we just kicked off, started talking, and started getting really close. So that happened over the years, and it took like I was in Bangalore for a little close to around 12 years. So all that connections that I had made. Moving to Copenhagen, it was a press on the reset button again for me.
Mm. Yeah, you got a
Yeah,
lot of
but
resets, huh?
yeah, a lot of resets. But I would say that it was really crazy because for me it was completely a new experience in, I can say, exposure completely because of the way that I had grown in my own mind because
Hmm.
coming to Copenhagen now at this point of time, like I'm really at a point in which I can connect with a lot of people that I really need to actually move
Hmm.
further in what I
In
want
your
to do.
career.
Yeah, exactly.
That's really cool. Um, so yeah, I mean, like, it's so fascinating because were you born in Saudi Arabia or were you born in India?
I was born in India, then
Moved
my
to
dad moved to Saudi Arabia. Yeah.
right, and then
But
you
my sister, she was actually born in Saudi Arabia.
Oh, cool. And what age did you go back to India to Bangalore? Was like your for
Uh,
university?
exactly. When I was 18. Yeah.
Interesting. Because those are like such. I mean, obviously Saudi Arabia and Europe is massively different, but even Saudi Arabia and India, such a different type of. I mean, just the environment is different, but the culture must be so different. Was there, when you grew up in Saudi Arabia, was there a element of Indian culture infused into you, like not necessarily religious, just like in terms of like the different aspects of the way that people are living. You said you went to an Indian school, so I'm sure you kind of got a little bit of stuff, but yeah, I mean, like, what was there a big shock when you went to live in Bangalore of like, oh, this is what India is versus like what you were taught in your family and school and things like that?
Well, the thing is, like, we used to come back every year for summer vacations back at home. So it was like we had the taste of what
Of
we were
what it was
coming
like.
back to. But it didn't come as a huge shock. But I can definitely say, growing up in the Middle East, you would think like, oh, the person might, I mean, people might be completely disjoined from the
The
cultures and
rest.
stuff like that.
Yeah.
But I come from a Brahmin family, which is family of priests, you could say, and my
Wow.
dad kind of
Hindu priests?
Hindu priest, yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Uh, so
Cool.
my dad kind of wanted to keep that element of the traditional thoughts alive. So he used to kind of give us a lot of updates on a lot of stuff that's there in our holy books and stuff like that.
That's so
It
cool.
was I wouldn't say preaching, but
No, just
it was
infusing.
like imparting of knowledge
Impart.
from
Yeah.
one to the other. That's about it.
That's
Yeah.
beautiful. Yeah, I think that's really cool, especially when you're growing up in like a, in a mostly Muslim environment that's not necessarily your culture, your religion. It's pretty cool that your dad had the wherewithal to impart on you kind of like your culture
Roots.
and the roots. Yeah, I think that's really important.
Like,
And especially like when it's not done in a preaching way or in a dogmatic way, there's a lot of power for that. I grew up in an extremely dogmatic and religious environment, so I am happy that I got that information from my culture because I want to know my roots and my where I'm from. But all the fucking trauma that I have now from growing up religious is like not really worth it, Um, but it's something that I think a lot about with my baby, of like, how am I going to give him the same information and like culture that I got without making it like black and white and dogmatic and religious, because it's like, there's like a fine line, right? Because if you just like say, oh, this is like a cultural thing, then maybe it won't be in his mind of like, this is my lineage. It will just be, okay, whatever,
exactly.
I'll go culture here, culture there. But the flip side, if I like ingrain it in him, like this is your religion, then I'm going to fuck him up. So it's like,
Yeah.
finding that middle ground is always a very interesting thing. And I feel like Hinduism, in a sense, is, yes, it's a religion. Yes, it's like a type of, a belief system and structure and spirituality, but it's also similar to Judaism in a culture of stories and ideas and different ways of like, focusing and, having ideals and, what's the word? Things to do and things not to do, kind of like a creed of some sort.
Right. Like I always believe, like, Hinduism is kind of like the way to live life. That's how it's told. So, like, it's up to you. You want to do it or not. So
Right.
it's always in your hands.
In your hands. I like that. So you moved to India to study computer science, right? At a RNSIT, I think it's called.
Yes. You did some good research.
I did some research, a little bit.
Yeah.
Where did that come from? Is it, you said your dad's an engineer. Was computers kind of a big thing in your life growing up? Was there somebody that kind of like turned the switch on for you in your mind?
Yeah, so the thing is, my dad, I think he used to do a lot of reading as such, and he had a lot of books that were kept aside. And I used to just go through those books, and I'm like, this seems like really interesting stuff to get into. And surprisingly, I think when I was around 9, my dad actually got me my first computer, which was a 386. And
Hell yeah.
wow. He didn't get me just the computer, he got me the parts. So basically, I had to build
You had to
that
build it.
together.
That's cool. That's cool.
Yeah, so I did a lot of messing around, and I think one summer vacation, we were actually back in Saudi because we actually traveled to Dubai and we came back, so we had a little bit of time. So I actually did a small, work for a shop that used to assemble computers.
Oh, like an
So
internship kind of thing.
I couldn't say an internship. It's a summer holiday job.
Like you're just hanging
Yeah.
out in the place.
Exactly, and I did close to around 8 computers in a day. So basically,
Wow.
get the whole components,
Yeah.
install Windows on it, and then keep it ready for the person to pick up.
Wow.
So, that was something that actually got me really interested in the hardware aspect of things,
Mm-hmm.
and I was always really keen on actually getting into computers at a really young age. And I think when I played Prince of Persia for the first time, because my dad,
Prince of
he kind of,
Persia. What a
my
good
dad,
shout out, dude. That's awesome.
my dad actually got me the Atari
Uh-huh.
2600. I remember playing a lot on that. But when I played Prince of Persia for the first time, that's when I actually thought, man, things can actually get really nice, because the animation that you actually saw and that was
Mm-hmm.
kind of really cool compared to all the other games
Of
that were
course.
there at that point.
And the game mechanics of the time, like that was something that was very like, oh wow, this is like a real we're manipulating time. Like, it's not just like
Exactly.
jumping from platforms and shit, like or like button mashing. It's like an actual game mechanic that's like never been seen before in this way.
Yeah, yeah. So when I played that, I was like, man, animation can get really nice. So that actually got me really motivated to, push into gaming as such. So
Hmm.
I actually did a lot of research about it in my high school days. Also, I did find out about Maya and stuff like that. So again, they were being used for visual effects at that point of time. I think Terminator and all, they kind of
Yeah.
try to use a little of that in action to get a lot of things running. And I amassed a lot of knowledge. And for me, like, I was really destined, I can say, to try and get into the gaming industry somehow or the other. So right after engineering, I kind of found a job at a game testing place. So because in India, at that point of time, when I got out of engineering, there were very few companies that were actually, core gaming in India. India as such, like, you don't find a lot of console games coming from there.
Right.
So yeah, if I got a job in testing, which I was really glad that I did get into, because the very first game that I tested was SmackDown versus Raw.
What? That's sick, dude. That's a crazy game to test.
And the craziest thing was, it was on the PlayStation Portable. It was on the
And the
PSP.
PSP.
So yeah. So the thing is, I'm actually holding a PlayStation Portable that's connected to a dev device. That got me like pumped
Like
up
just
completely.
thinking
I'm
about.
like, it just made my brain explode, because I'm holding a console over here, and then that's connected to kind of like a big machine that
Yeah.
looks like a CPU that actually has the build on it.
Wow.
How can you have a build running on a huge machine like that and just connect a
Right. And
stream?
it's connected to the internet. It's so wild. That's wild.
That's really crazy, yeah. So, and in fact, I did a lot of things within that. So, for me, building software was something that kind of came. I really like puzzles. So, for
Hmm.
me, software engineering is kind of like putting a lot of pieces of the puzzle together, and then having the output, come out in the best way possible. So, I actually built a lot of tools within the testing place that I started working at. And they were like, wow, this is really cool. But for me, the itch was there, that I'm testing games, but I'm actually not building them. In
Right.
fact, have you heard of the game Darksiders? It's a really cool game. It's from THQ.
Sounds really familiar. Darksiders is like it's not like Dark Souls, different.
No, Dark
Darksiders.
Souls is different. Darksiders is kind of like the guy has a really good sword, and then
It's like a
that game.
melee smasher, like a button masher
Exactly. It's
action game.
about the four horsemen.
I don't know it.
Yeah, so basically, all during the testing of that game, there were like 5 or 6 people, and this is where I was telling you the story about me building those machines in as a kid.
As your summer, yeah.
I actually Yeah, so the thing is, when I was working for that game, I was doing PC compatibility testing. Okay,
Uh-huh.
so
Uh-huh.
PC compatibility testing basically means putting a lot of hardware together and then running the game on that machine for through its cycle. So basically, when that's happening, there's a lot of bugs that you come across. Very few minor ones, but I found a really crazy bug that was only happening on ATI hardware,
A specific type of hardware.
specific to ATI hardware.
ATI.
Yeah, and the
Did
developer got yeah they got really psyched because they've done so much of work. They've put a lot of work into building those shaders and stuff like that, and it doesn't work on one specific graphics card
yeah, it's a
provider.
problem.
They were like really they were really psyched about it, and then I caught it at the right time. They actually gave a recommendation for me and stuff like that because
Oh,
they were like, "This is
nice.
a really killer bug."
Like you're more than
Yeah,
just a tester. You actually understand things. You then
exactly.
you I don't know the timeline, but you eventually got to work at Unity, the actual company, not just in the engine. That must have been an extremely exciting time for you, because like it's like the culmination of all your dreams, right? Of like, I want to be a game
Yeah.
developer. I'm doing this. I'm going to study this. I'm going to study this, and all of a sudden you're in the actual game developer. Like you're not
That
just
was that
developing.
was that was actually a really I can say a mind revealing fact because it was a dream come true because who doesn't want to work at a company that is like Unity or Unreal.
Super high level, yeah.
Because yeah, it is. It is. And the thing is, like, it was all because of the kind of the work that I've pushed towards building stuff within the engine. I've actually used Unity since Unity one, the 2.0, since it actually was
Wow.
Windows platform. Yeah. So I've actually worked on the engine when there was absolutely no documentation and kind of manipulated it to do a lot of things on it. And I actually ran a company for a little close to around 5 years, and we built a lot of AR, VR, MR products. All of them were built in Unity. This was kind of that small gap that I was getting into. So after like close to around 8 years of being a game developer, I was like, there's a nice thing that I can do with the game engine. I can try and use the game engine to actually build software for other industries. And I started, delving into building applications, real-time applications for the architectural industry, for the aerospace industry, for
Like
the
prevising kind of stuff.
exactly. It's kind of real-time applications that we're building for them. Previs again is one part of it. The
Yeah.
other one is exploration of engineering assets. Like if you have to actually explode
Oh,
aircraft engine, so
right. You could
it
see
comes
it,
off into its
move it
own
around.
parts. You can move it around. You can actually pick the individual components, bring
Super
them
cool.
out, have a super cool inspection of it. And this was like close to around like 8 years ago
Wow.
that I was building these
Very early.
applications. Yeah, yeah,
That's
pretty early. I was actually working with the Oculus DK1.
nice. And that
Yeah.
and that's is that how you got the job at Unity?
Well, they were keeping really close eyes on me and the applications that I was building from my studio. I think in a span of like 5 years, we built close to around 33 odd applications. One
Wow.
actually won,
Amazing.
yeah, one actually won an award. That was with a US client, Lowe's.
Lowe's?
Uh,
Of
yeah,
course, of
the
course.
the hardware guys. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it was a crazy application, in fact, because that award that application won was best enterprise solution. That is a really killer award to get for an application.
Of
That was
course.
because the fact that the controller for your VR experience was the hedge trimmer. The hedge trimmer was
The
the
controller.
main showcase of the experience. So that itself is the controller for it. So in VR, you actually had a hedge trimmer that you could use, you could try before you buy. That was the model that they
Oh,
were
cool.
going for. So
Super cool.
yeah. So after they tried, we gave them an arcade experience so that they could, build shapes in a specific amount of time. But what we added to that experience is really crazy. Alan, what I've always told people is, the more you engage senses,
Mm-hmm.
the better your experience gets. So for this application, we actually tied up with a French company that gave us a small box that had close to around 36 capsules, rather cartridges
Okay.
that had smell in them. Okay, and we sent
What?
a ping from our application that I want
To
cartridge number one to be dispensed for 0.1 seconds. Fresh cut grass smell comes when you cut the grass.
That's so cool. That's so cool. So like the experience was like a more than just like a physical sense or audio visual sensory. We were adding another sense into it.
Exactly.
It's so cool.
so so that's when a lot of people at Unity saw that application, and then at least the team that was there in India, and they were like they wanted to get me on board. They tried to get me on board like a year before that application, but I was kind of like in two minds because my company was quite young at that point of time, and I knew that there was more mileage, so I waited for another year, and then I took
Smart. A
their
better a better deal.
package. Exactly. Yeah.
Um
It was really killer working for them for like 3 years in India and then 1 year over here in Copenhagen. That's how I moved, in fact. So I'm internally within Unity. I moved to another team. We came here to Copenhagen. I mean, the whole family, we moved over here to Copenhagen, and then I was here for a year. And then last year, I mean, 2 years ago, I think that was like the first firing round that Unity had. I
yeah.
mean, they've shelved a lot of people right
Oh
now,
yeah.
and it's still going on, sadly.
Still going on,
But
yeah.
it's still going on,
In
sadly.
the whole industry. I mean, it's not just Unity. It's really
Exactly,
in
exactly.
a lot of places. Pretty crazy.
Yes, yes. And my team was affected because of the fact that we automated all the processes. So we automated all our processes. So
So
they're
they
like,
didn't need you
you guys
anymore.
can't require. Move.
Uh, don't be too good at your job is the lesson here. Always leave a
Exactly.
little bit of room for like, oh, you need me. Um,
Exactly. Yeah. Well, this is what happens with mass automation. I can say, like, there are chances of you kind of negating your own job, and
yeah.
I've been like a a part of that, I can say.
No, for sure. I have the same. I'd never think about like how the jobs are going to be affected, but like for me, automation is super important. I feel like it democratizes different types of industries. So like, specifically in virtual production, a lot of the tools that I'm making, a lot of the softwares that I'm making are ways to automate different processes, right? So yes, in doing that, you might be cutting out like let's say an operator, a high level operator's job, but at the same time, you're now allowing 30 different or whatever, 10 people that would never operate in their lives to now operate. So it's pushing the industry forward. Yes, you might be cutting out some different positions, but I think the more you automate, the more you democratize, the more the industry grows, other things come in, right? Other jobs, other needs.
Yep.
Even through automation, you're going to start developing and coming up with different applications, different needs, right? So I feel like it is definitely a catch-22, especially when it's like, especially when you're automating software development things and you're the software developer. That's even like more of a can of worms for sure. But I think automation, and obviously we're going to see how AI is automating our lives, but I feel like there's more positive benefits than there is negative. And especially if the automation doesn't like push people away but brings people in, then you're benefiting. Then you're benefiting because the more you democratize, the more you grow whatever industry it is that you're trying to automate, the benefit is very, very spread out. You know, it's not just specific like little things here and there.
That's true.
Super cool. So Unity, and then you kind of found yourself in Copenhagen. I want to just, before we get into kind of, your current stuff, I want to shift gears a little bit into kind of India specifically, and Goa and the party scene. You know, how did you kind of fall into the party scene, the psytrance scene? You know, was there a big element of Goa in it, or not necessarily? You know, kind of, you went from game development to visuals. And yeah, we kind of heard a little bit about that kind of process in terms of your development. But kind of as a person, you know, what kind of got you into this thing? What was like, you know, what were the visuals or VJing that you saw and you're like, oh, I want to do that. Oh, I can do that. You know, what was your experience with that?
Well, I can say, the very first time I can say that I wanted to get into visuals was when I saw Android Jones. I saw his Samsara project and I was like, whoa, that is insane. And I was like, damn, I want to try and do something like that. But I would say, Goa might not be the roots. I can say for me, it's more over Bangalore because I did all my experimentation over there. It was with this small crew that I had, a few friends that I had. Basically, for me to understand that, okay, is this more digestible by a larger audience before I actually went to Goa for the first time. And it was a lot of these. You can say super cozy, max 150 people
super
together.
friend party kind of vibes.
Exactly. And for me, it was kind of like, for the very first time that I actually did visuals for the psychedelic parties was in a place called Coorg in India. I don't know, in Karnataka. I don't know if you know about that place.
I'm not
but
familiar.
it's kind of like, it's
full of Israelis?
jungle. It's I'm sorry?
Full of Israelis or no?
No, not so much. I haven't seen that many people actually over there.
Sorry.
But
lush jungle.
But Coorg is, yeah, it's a kind of like lush jungles and stuff like that. So a lot of people have these coffee estates, and they're spaced out a lot. So there was this one coffee estate that was kind of booked for this event, and a guy came down from Germany. And that was the very first time. His name was Gurgamesh. I don't know if you know that artist.
No, not familiar.
But yeah, he came down, and it was. So the thing is, my friends, the kind of circle that I was, they used to hear to a little hardcore music. Psychcore was the kind of the essence, and because one of my close friends, he owns a psycho label called Sacred Sound, and that was one of the main. I actually came back this year to Caracas, Maracas, and perform because they had their 10-year anniversary. And it was a journey that I went through with my friends, and it was really awesome because, as I told you, that place that we went to 8 years ago. Imagine, I just on two pillars I put a plastic sheet, okay, and put the projector from behind over here, facing out to the audience. Okay, so basically they were seeing a holographic image. Right. So people were like, "What the hell am I looking at through the whole night?" Because they have not seen anything like that, and for me, it was an experimentation. Okay, these are things that I was trying out with people. That night, for me, actually, I had one of the good revelations in my mind, which is the mind is one of the most powerful graphics card that you can have. Because manipulation of just images. That night, what I did was I had a PSD file that had close to around 200 layers. Okay.
What? A PS3.5? You said what?
No, a PSD file.
PSD. Okay, Photoshop file. Yeah.
So a PSD file having like close to around 200 layers.
Okay.
So what I did was I built a full frequency analyzer, and that full frequency analyzer, each bits of it, I connected to different layers. So basically, when tips came, one layer turns off and it on. So it was
It's
basically
like a
adding in.
stepper, but like
Exactly.
super connected to the audio.
Exactly.
Super
And
cool.
people are like, what
Love
is
it.
going on? Because they were
Yeah,
like, they couldn't figure out. And I was not using Residium. I was not using anything. I was just directly outputting from Unity.
wow. So Unity ingested this PSD file and then showed and
Exactly.
turned off based on the frequency. So cool.
Exactly.
So it's like
So
did you kind of like just see like, oh, I can do this? Like this is like I can just make whatever I need for whatever show I'm doing kind of thing?
yeah, exactly. So that PSD file was actually provided back from someone else. See, the whole point of this project, binary fragmentation, is the fact that I'm zero. There's another one. That other one
Oh,
needs to be, and that's how I collaborate
I
with
love it.
other people and kind of get my my visuals out. I really love to collaborate with people. I've done a lot of collaborations with a lot of people, with Delta Process,
Shout out Delta
with
Process.
I have a lot of other people that I've collaborated with as well. And yeah, collaboration is a big part of binary fragmentation. So that collaboration process has brought me a long way. That PSD file was provided by another person, so that collaboration actually came into place, and it came alive.
It's amazing. Yeah, people don't always remember. I think that, a lot of VJing is specific to like a screen or, just making visuals on like a render. That doesn't necessarily need collaboration. You definitely can collaborate and, maybe work with a modeler, maybe work with somebody who's doing some sort of styling, whatever. But when it comes to mapping, when it comes to large scale projection, if you don't collaborate and you do try to keep everything insular or, try to be like, just give me the thing, just I'll do the thing, you're going to have a hard time, and we know the people at the top of their game, at the top of the game that we're playing, they're all massive collaborators, right? They're all maybe very high level. They don't necessarily need as much help per se or as much a thing, but when they wanna, or not, well, I shouldn't speak for them, but like my point is that they're collaborating, right? Even though they're at the highest level, task, Delta Process, name whoever you want. They're collaborating. They're working with other people. They're getting, other people to animate. They're getting other people to help them with other systems that they don't know, with mapping, with the stage designers, with all these people. And it really, the more you kind of allow yourself to have more ones and more zeros in your experience, you're going to have a better time, right? Your output's going to be better, but also your input of like how you feel and how you experience the thing is going to be better. Festivals are hard. Festivals are hard. They're long hours, a lot of unknowns. You don't always have the support of the producers or the promoters. Sometimes they're just like, go, and you're like, okay, but I need a table. Like, how do I get a table? And if you're not kind of like open to talk to people, to let people into your experience, it's very difficult. So collaboration is super important, and that's what I always loved about you was your kind of willingness and openness to share what you're doing, even though it's very difficult, very high level, and yet even me, who's somebody who understands these things, I was still kind of like super taken aback by your approach. We met at Modem, regardless of all that stuff. What you were doing there was extremely high level. You were you were making a clustered rendering system that could run in real time for the multiple projectors that are involved there. And this is already like pretty much when I was starting to get into the same realm of virtual production and multi-cluster rendering, so you can get really high resolutions. And seeing the way that you approached it in a totally different software, totally different approach, it just like kind of spurred so much in my mind. And it's things that even till today I try to apply to my processes and my software development. And it's nothing like specific. It's not like a line of code or like, here's my workflow. It's just like the approach that you had and the openness to share it and explain it at a lower level that I could understand. It really opened my mind. I really, I love you for that, so.
Yeah, I mean, I love to share knowledge, and in fact, there's a lot that I've actually given. I've given a lot of talks. In fact, if you actually look on YouTube, you find a lot of talks of me giving on AR, VR, MR, stuff that's out of the context of visuals, you would say. But I've never talked about visuals. In fact, I really do want to give a talk maybe at some point of time, but then, um, so I think Unity gathering at this time, I'm actually doing a workshop
Nice,
for
dude.
people to actually just
For visuals?
get the basics. Yeah, exactly, for visuals. They were really hyped about that, and they're like, yeah, okay, we really want this to be there.
Hell yeah.
So yeah, sharing knowledge is something that should be there as such. Just keeping it all together. You can't actually do much. You can't grow too much as well. Just keeping it
By
all together
yourself.
within you.
For sure.
Yeah.
I always felt like the not VJ specifically, but visual arts in general, like especially like media, immersive and interactive media arts, people are so open and like so like, this is how I did it. This is how I did it. How do you do it? This is how I did it. Is it like that in the software industry or not really?
Well, I think you're very familiar with. So this is something that I really wanted to talk on the show. This
Please.
it's called the Creative Commons, and you might be really familiar with that.
Open
So
source.
exactly. So there are a lot of things that are there under Creative Commons. Like I have a lot of. So through the show, I'll actually show a few shaders that I use that I get from Shader Toy and stuff like that. And there are a lot of other things like 3D objects that I use that are part of the Creative Commons, and I use that to actually build experiences out of that. So that is something that I really want to impart as well, because there are different sources that you can actually get a lot of assets to use if you really have the drive to actually do a lot of stuff in real time. Like if you want to have your own objects, you could always build it in Blender and then bring them out to life. But then if you're stuck in between of not being that creative, and if you have that aspect of maybe the code part of it, you could always go with assets that are there from Creative Commons, and I've used that over the years. It's been really awesome within game development and with visuals as well. It's really awesome. I always want to give attribution to that. There's a huge list. I can't actually attribute everything
Of course.
right now. But then I like to keep the tag of the attribution of everything that I've used. So it's basically there if anyone asks for it.
Is this
In fact,
your own GitHub? Or it's your
no.
own page?
So it's there locally on my system. I actually
Okay.
share a lot of with people
When
like,
they reach out to you kind of thing?
exactly.
Cool. Well, I want it.
Yeah,
Send it to me now.
yeah. For sure. I have a lot of shaders that I really want to share with you, because as I was telling you, like the way that I use shaders is, and that these shaders, I use them because no matter what, you can actually change the aspect ratio and the
Tiling?
resolution
The
of
resolution?
your output, and it actually fits within that if the
Right.
shader actually is coming for it,
Right.
which is really awesome for real time.
For sure. Yeah, I mean, that's like the biggest thing. And this is actually great because I wanted to talk to you about this as well. The thing that I love the most about real time is the malleability, like because like a good VJ, right, is somebody who can get into a situation and it could be totally fucked, worst situation ever, and still do what they need to do, right? Whether it's mapping really fast or being able to deal with lots of different DJs giving you content and being able to mix them in a nice way. It's like, being able to problem solve in the moment is super important. And for me, the real-time tools allow me to do that on a very high level, right? Because it's like, okay, obviously you want to plan before, and it's good to know the resolution of what you're going to be doing, but maybe it changed, maybe it's different, maybe there's who knows what. And like the real-time process not only allows you to change your, you know, your resolution and your composition, but it gives you the ability to change things higher, like on a lower level, on a base level, like geometry, like shaders, like you're talking about, you know, the abstraction of what you're trying to do, the reaction to audio, to your input, whatever. It's so malleable and it's so done in the real time. Whereas like if you're offline rendering and you're looping, then yes, tons of post effects. People do super cool stuff with post effects. I'm seeing a lot now of people piping in rendered content into real-time generative places and then back in, and then you're getting kind of this like overlay kind of thing. But if you want to change the, you know, the object of the cloner, if you want to change the, you know, direction of the whatever the fuck, it's not as easy, you know. And yeah, I love real time. I know that you love real time, obviously. What, you know, using a game engine as a VJ tool is a very difficult thing. I think that in the current situation, there's a lot more information about how to do it. For sure with Unreal, Unity is like a lot more of a mystery to me. Even though funnily enough, I think I've told you this before, but the first introduction that I had to real time was Unity, was a workshop that I did in Rome. I went to LPM, shout out LPM, in Rome, or they do it in all over the place, but it's an amazing meetup. And I did a workshop there, a Unity workshop. And I was like, oh, holy shit, like this is ridiculous, right? Like what I can do here. And then at the same meetup, I saw a bunch of people doing Touch Designer. And like the Unity workshop threw me for a loop because it was like the same thing. It was like, you know, C#, a lot of C# of like, you know, different functions. And I'm like totally, I don't know what the hell this is. I'm just following the workshop and like the output is great, but I'm like, I don't know how I did that. But I was so turned on to it. And then when I saw these people using Touch Designer, I see that they're doing kind of like similar stuff of like, you know, parameters and inputs and outputs and variables, but there's no lines of code. There's no C#, you know? And I'm like, what is this? You know? And that like totally threw me on the way. And now I'm using Unreal Engine in my VJ setup. You know, I see the massive benefits of a game engine for a VJ tool, specifically in the ability to like build whatever you need for the specific problem. And I know that, look, we're very aligned on that, like problem solving as like a creative itch, you know, filling that itch of, like you said the puzzle, putting the puzzle together. What has it been like for you to use Unity as a VJing tool? Where do you see it going? You know, what are your favorite things about it?
Well, the one crazy thing that I can say about using Unity is the fact that, well, see, I've used both Unity and Unreal for doing, you know, VJ setups. And one thing that I can say about Unity is the fact that it's definitely lighter.
Lighter.
And because it's lighter, I'm able to actually run 2 to 3 instances of the engine running
Simultaneously.
apart from having 1 or 2 of my pre-built applications. So I actually compile the application, a few applications, and run that. So let's say at a gig, you would find like an average of 4 instances of Unity running on my system. And my RAM, right now I have close to around 3 instances of Unity. My RAM is running at 75%, and my VRAM is running at 42%. CPU is running at 3%. So, so yeah, I can definitely say that it helps me work in a different way. A lot of people work on loops. In fact, after modem is when I started getting into the groove of building loops and mixing the loops with my real-time content. That is something that I learned recently, and that has been really awesome for me to actually try as well, because I've been getting a couple of really crazy outputs with that that setup that I have right now. Maybe running real time only is not the right way. But a mixture of both is definitely something that I'm into using from now on.
Yeah. No, I think you
Yeah.
have to have a mixture of both. First, for the nature of real time and the nature of running an application is that it might not work, it might crash, it might get fucked up, and having the ability, a very big part of VJing is always have a backup, always have a redundancy of some sort that's easy to switch or easy to change. And also, I talk a lot about how real time is king and real time is the best.
Actually, getting back to the point that you were saying with Unity, okay. The thing is, maybe the instance that you had an interaction of Unity and Touch Designer, and why you actually picked up Touch Designer was the fact that Unity was exposing you to more of the code, and that has changed over the time. In fact, right now Unity has its own kind of like blueprint
Blueprints.
system. Like, yeah, it's basically node-based programming, and that has been there, I think, for the past 2.5 years right now on Unity. So if people use that with Unity, it's also there as an option. What I like about Unity is the fact that it's pure vanilla game engine. It
Right.
doesn't have any added stuff. If you want to configure it, you have to add stuff onto it, and that addition of modules has actually led me to configure the engine in a different way altogether over the years. Like pre 5 Unity 5, there was a different way that I worked with Unity. Post Unity 5, there's a different way that I work with Unity, and post Unity 2020, there's a different way that I worked with it, because post 2020 is the fact that they started getting their own rendering system, you could say. It's called a scriptable rendering pipeline. So you can build your own pipeline for what you want to be rendered. So I kind of use that right now, and it's kind of more configured towards what I want to show on the screen. So yeah, it's more concise. I would say Unity is a very light tool to use, and performance-wise, it's been really awesome for me on my system. I have a Ryzen 7 with 16 gigs of RAM, and mind you, 16 gigs of RAM, 75% is filled right now, including Resolume and MadMapper running and Magic.
And Magic,
Okay.
yeah.
So all these applications running together, I'm really surprised that my system actually lives.
Well, you're a really good programmer, so that makes sense. No, it is very interesting because and also back then I was more interested in what's easier, what's less hands-on per se, right? And now when I'm more in Unreal and more kind of getting deeper into software design and development, I want the opposite. I want more control. I want more detailed things. I think that.
Have you been looking into C++ in Unreal?
No, I can do Python in Touch Designer, like very basic, and I can do JSON, like very basic JSON. But I can't. It's just out of my brain. I'm not even gonna get there. I think really, the more I use Python in Touch Designer with ChatGPT and kind of get more guidance, the more I'm like, oh, this is so much more powerful. Or I shouldn't say like that, but this is like so much more open than node-based visual scripting, because it's like the benefit of the nodes that I see is that obviously it's in front of your face, and there's you don't have to go through like lines of code to understand, and there's no syntax, right? When you're just connecting nodes, that's the syntax. The syntax is just literally just connect it.
Exactly.
With code, the syntax is what gets me every time. And Python is such a bitch with that because the syntax is so specific with all the freaking spaces and everything. It doesn't work if you have a space. Like, fuck you. You can't figure out that space is a mistake. So it's like, it's hard. And but at the same time, I think that the deeper you get into wanting to create an application or wanting to do advanced things, the more need you have for traditional, coding and scripting. But with Unreal, really, I think where it really shines on a very high level is the blueprints, because it's a blessing and a curse. The blessing is that you have basically, any operation that you can do in C++, you have as a blueprint. The curse is that there's like 10,000 different nodes, and you're never gonna know how to use all of them, and like some of them have documentation, some of them don't, and there's a lot of frustration there. But
imagine the developers that actually built that.
yeah, it's like how did they totally.
So there's actually a really crazy concept that I learned in engineering. I think if I remember it right, it's called lexical analyzer. It basically understands the whole syntax of a specific language, and then ensures that whatever you've written is compliant with that. Yes. So that analysis, that lexical analyzer that you actually build for any system that you're building is the most crucial part of it. Yeah.
I mean, I use
think
like
blueprint. In fact, when you get some error, the node actually becomes red and it shows a kind of an exclamation mark on it.
Yeah.
These are part of that system that actually.
Interesting. It's like the debugging system almost.
Yeah, exactly.
That's cool. I mean, I use Sublime Text, and it does give you like different hints of like, this is wrong, this is right. But it's like, and obviously it tells you what line the error is in and all that kind of stuff. So like I'm getting better and better at problem solving, but it's like these small little things of like, the right fucking brackets and the spaces and the different not spaces, the tab, what is it called, the indexes of the text where they are. Very annoying. I hate it. I'm like 9 times out of 10, if I write code, I have to put it into ChatGPT and it like fixes my indentation for me. And it's like, it's like a small, tiny little thing. And it's like, I just can't do it myself because it never works for me.
But we're really living in a really good time in which we can actually use ChatGPT to do these kind of things, because that's really been I can say a really good plus point for a lot of people to actually get more advanced at what they're doing, because you can actually get to know, okay, this is an error that was there, and you can actually find that error out with tools like these. In fact, it's really awesome because I read somewhere on LinkedIn a couple of days ago that, a couple of months ago, that there's a person that actually built a whole game using ChatGPT. He basically it interfaced with Unity to basically give him the Unity code, what he needs to put for the controller, for the parameters, for everything to actually go ahead, and he could build it within like a couple of weeks, and that was really awesome.
No, the things that are possible now are really amazing. I just love it because it's like it's not only doing the end result for me, I'm also learning, because it's giving me the the little snippets in the scripts, and it's telling me what it's doing. So like, yes, I'm also like getting things fast, but I'm also learning along the way. And hopefully the more that I do that, then the more I can rely on my own mind and not only the AI's mind.
I mean, it's syntax is one thing that I would say that you get used to over time. Like as you keep using it, it's like language.
It's like language,
So it's exactly like that. For me, it's like that. Like, if I look Java code versus if I look C# code versus I look at C++ code. If you give me the same code in different languages, I can actually read them, and I can tell you what the application doing. Yeah. So it's as you grow over time, it's syntax that basically sticks onto your mind.
Just a question that just popped up in my mind. Like when you are in Unity and you're building stuff, are you building stuff in C# or are you using this node-based visual scripting?
Yeah, I use
C# always.
Yeah.
Like
in fact,
for functions or for actual like logic.
So the way that I work is I build systems, and those systems actually they are kind of, they contain the logic. And the system also contains stuff like what input comes in, what output is going as well. it's kind of that it's contained within a container, and then we basically have this input and the output
Ins and
that's coming
outs.
through it. Yeah,
Interesting. So interesting. I mean, that's like kind of like that's the way to develop, right? Is like containers and modules that are doing different things and sharing information back and
exactly.
forth. Uh,
It's best that way. Yeah,
it's what?
it's best that way to keep it
Yeah,
in modules.
yeah. It makes it cleaner, easier to read, for sure. I just had Tommy Etkin teched on, and he was showing me one of his projects, and it was like very much that of like, different, because it's all touch designer. It's a lot easier to make things in containers, but just seeing how he approached his visual scripting versus his like C++ scripting was in the same kind of manner of like, this script is here and this script is here, and they talk to each other, but they're separate,
Like
yeah, I mean,
one good thing in most programming languages is the fact that you could send messages
that
between functions, which is really awesome. So handshaking either directly or building an interface that actually injects code into it.
injects,
There are two
right.
ways of actually doing it. Yeah. So
What is
that's
the
really good.
difference between the two? Like a handshake would mean like I'm waiting to send something and I'm sending something, and
Yeah.
what is the
So
difference between that and ingesting or injecting?
injection could be kind of like with hardware, you have these raw values that are coming in. That's directly going into the
A variable.
application rather than it being handshaking. So handshaking would happen at, let's say, a Bluetooth level, in which there's two interfaces that connect with each other,
Hmm.
and then the data transfers. And that data transfer is going to be more of an injection rather than it being streamlined data that comes through.
Interesting. So it's like almost like
And sometimes,
when it's needed.
exactly. And sometimes, like you don't need permissions for a lot of stuff, and you would want that data to stream through directly.
The whole time.
That's when you would just, yeah, you would inject that data directly into what you would want to do. Yeah.
Super cool.
So
Uh,
in fact, I've dealt a lot with it in the past couple of years because I've ported games from one application from one platform to the other. So when you're usually doing that, you have to inject a lot of data, which is actually built on one platform,
into
and
the
that
new one.
exactly, and it becomes very easy to do that.
Interesting. Right, because I guess also you can't always create handshakes, right? Because like an old system wouldn't be able to necessarily handshake with
Exactly,
a new system.
exactly, exactly.
Very interesting. Before we get into your set, which we're very close to, I'm very excited to see what you're going to show us. Talk to me a little bit about Magic visuals. You're the first guest on the show to use Magic visuals. I know Magic visuals forever. Are you the first? Yeah, I'm gonna say you're the first. Maybe I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure you're the first. Magic visuals are super cool. My mentor Dorian, Master Damus, shout out Dorian, does not use real time stuff. He's super old school. But when we first started playing with each other, when he first started showing me Resolume and mapping all stuff, he's like, you got to check out this thing called Magic. I think you'll really like it. And I downloaded it. This must be like 10 years ago. I downloaded it, and I was like, I hate this. I hate this. It's like, all these nodes. And I'm like, what is this nodes? What the fuck is this? Like, where are my sliders, And I'm just like totally, and I'm like, it looks so bad. Like all this kaleidoscope. I was like, so like totally brushing it off, And then 3 or 4 years later, I found Touch Designer. I'm like, oh, that Magic thing was actually pretty cool. It's like, so that Magic thing actually would have been a lot easier than learning Touch Designer. It's so funny how like, different things pop up in your life at different moments and how you relate to them in that moment. I love it.
Yeah,
Yeah. So
yeah,
tell me
yeah.
about Magic. Talk to me about Magic.
So I think so I got to know about Magic through VJ Vakao. He actually
Shout out Vakao.
yeah, shout out to Vakao.
Yeah.
So he actually so I the thing is I like to keep conversing with a lot of VJs, and he was one of those few guys that I was conversing for a really long time on Instagram, and he was like, bro, your stuff is really nice. And then I was looking at some of his stuff, and then I saw some specific thing that he was using Magic for.
Uh-huh.
And I was like, asked him what software is that. He told, it's Magic, bro, you should try it out. I'm like, Magic? I've never heard of this software. Let me try it out. And I saw it costed, I think, some $99 or
Yeah,
something.
it's
I'm like,
super
what?
cheap.
It's so cheap. Okay, fine. Let me just try it out. But really, shout out to the software. Right? Like, they've kept it alive for so long, and it actually works super flawlessly, I can say.
Yeah, yeah,
And I can configure it, and it's actually as I like lightweight for what it
for what it does.
that
Yeah,
does exactly.
yeah.
Um, that's how I picked up Magic. What I really like about it is the fact that it actually can compile HLSL shaders on it. So
Uh-huh.
that's really awesome.
Interesting.
And yeah, and the fact that I can basically change the resolution of my output. Let's say if I want like a 5126 pixels wide by 1080 pixels, I can do
Right.
that easily within that and then get a really super crisp, clean output from that software. So that's how I really got like inspired there. Let me start using Magic also in my sets, and I kind of use it in between for kind of it's kind of like how Chaser is.
Mm-hmm.
I do what Chaser does with Magic, cut the individual layers,
Mm-hmm.
layer them inside, and then pipe them into a node that basically selects either a sequence
Mm-hmm.
or a
Or
random
random.
order. The best thing about Magic is it's really audio reactive, so
Right.
just
Super generative
anything
visuals.
it sinks in really amazingly. So I really like Magic for that. It's very light, super light, and super useful in between in the set. Like I have a lot of Unity instances running, so having that and synesthesia also in between
Shout out
is really nice.
synesthesia. Synesthesia is amazing.
Yeah.
I love synesthesia because it's geared towards VJs. Like it's like, an HLSL or a GLSL shader playing machine is not new, right? A lot of softwares can do that. Like you said, Magic can too. But synesthesia is like mapping, MIDI mapping, OSC mapping, NDI, spout. It's all there for you. It's packaged in
Yep.
such a nice package. Their audio generation and what's the word? Their audio breaking up of audio. What?
Reactiveness.
Their audio reactiveness, yeah, but they're, like the way that they process the sound and everything is so
That is
high. It's
there.
very good, very good,
Yeah. Their FFA algorithm that they have is really
really tight,
top
really
notch.
tight.
Yeah.
And that's one of those things that like audio reaction. People are like, oh yeah, you just audio reaction, turn it on. It's like
I've
that can
actually
work.
bro, I've used synesthesia, just synesthesia in this
Just
one gig that I did. It was a silent concert, okay? So basically it's really slow BPM music. So basically it's like people are there kind of to sleep, and then they're also looking at the visuals, which is kind
oh,
of like
cool,
on the roof.
like
Uh,
like a sound bath, sound healing kind of thing.
Exactly, exactly. So this is one thing that I downloaded this shaman's face, and I used one of the shaders of synesthesia. So the face kind of like on each beat was like boom,
Yeah,
melting in and coming out, melting in and coming out.
yeah.
People were like, "What's
What is
going
it?
on?"
I just remembered. Oh shit, what's his name? Yeah, he was there last year at Modem. His name is he's like one of the fucking OG psychedelic visionary artists. Crazy scapes. Oh, what's his name? I'm going to say his name. And you're going to be like, oh, I'm an
Yeah,
idiot that I can't remember. He's
yeah.
like Russian guy. It's on the tip of my tongue. He makes like super crazy like environments, like very trippy, very like environments. He's like the OG. He's like Android Jones, same time as Android Jones, like one of the OG guys. Fuck, what is his name? Okay, I'll get to it. Anyway, he was doing the same thing. He was taking like his his pictures, his still images, and just putting them in
Is it
synesthesia.
Naminakawa?
Yeah, Lumenkoya, yeah, Lumenkoya, yeah.
Naminakawa.
Lumenkoya,
Yeah.
Lumenkoya. Shout out Lumenkoya.
I actually
And
met him this time at Caracas Maracas. So he was one of the VJs that performed
hell
as
yeah,
well.
he's a super
Yeah, it
nice
was first
guy.
time. So you know what? At Caracas, for me, it was like that was the first time I'm looking at his work, and I saw 2 nights of his work, and I was supposed to do visuals on the last night, and I'm like, damn, I'm up against this guy's work, damn, because he did such a really good job. I was like, wow, that looks
Yeah.
really his scaping, the way that he was actually doing a lot of his alpha work was really nice. I actually told him, bro, your alpha work, hats off. It's really nice.
What I was seeing him doing was like you're saying, like taking an image and very like it wasn't anything crazy. It was literally just like a displacement on the image, but because the way the synesthesia has like really interesting inputs and outputs, and it's obviously always generative, so it's always changing, and the audio reaction made it look so cool, you know. And it was just like such a simple thing of like image, displacement, audio, and it's like, okay, that's, you know, that's what I do all day every day. But like the way that it was done was so, I don't know, it just had such a nice feeling to it.
Yeah.
I was really
They have a
that was
nice
really cool.
they have a nice name for the software as well. Synesthesia.
Yeah, so
It's,
we
it
that's what
gets
we're doing,
you.
right? Okay, cool. So yeah, we're gonna jump into your set right now. Super excited to see what you have ready for us, and please, you know, take it away.
Okay, so let me just start off with my real-time stuff. So, welcome to my project that I've built for Caracas over the years. This actually started off
We should
with
also just mention Caracas Maracas is a psytrance festival in Goa, India. One of the, you know, not necessarily one of the biggest, but one of the oldest, and definitely one close to anybody that knows good psytrance's heart. Let's put it like that.
yeah. It's actually been really awesome because I think for the fact that they actually acknowledged me as being one of those visual artists that actually give good visuals for experimental music.
Yeah,
Because I've usually done visuals on the experimental night, and I kind of get into that groove over there and give people a unique experience with that.
hell
In
yeah.
fact, the first that I started off, I kind of told them that. They're kind of the shamans that show you the visual path to the whole experience, along with the audio shamans that make you hear what's actually coming. And then when I
Hell yeah.
showed them the specific visuals for the first time, a lot of people came up to me and they were like, "What are you doing?"
I
It's
love
because
it.
of the fact that I actually use so as we see, these are real time animations that are happening, and it gets I can say interesting when you can actually change parameters when the music gets, let's say, a little faster. So
Mm-hmm.
what I do is, so this is actually taken out as an output from Spout, and it goes directly into Residuum that you see behind over here. So this is another application that I have that I've built. So during the quarantine time, I actually built this application that I run. It has quite a few patches inside it, and I think you might have seen this kind of patterns in the iPad. There are a few applications that use this, because through Creative Commons again and Unity's asset store, I could
Mm-hmm.
actually get this asset and build like my set that
Your
I
version
have.
of it.
Exactly, with it. And these are things that are part of Creative Commons again, which
Mm-hmm.
is really awesome. The configuration that I have, as you see, like when I'm speaking, you can see a lot of things that are lighting up because of the fact that it's kind of being audio reactive to that.
Mm-hmm.
And so I've added a lot of elements, like ribbons that actually come to. You can see in the sides, they actually pull out. So along with that, there are other things like we have cloners that's there inside Residuum. There's a cloner kind of a thing that runs in this as well. So I can actually get a really killer effect with that, along with the fact that these the center bits can be changed altogether. There are multiple versions of it, so I kind of go with what it is. And then there's one mode which is kind of audio reactive, so you see it's kind of changing as I'm speaking.
Super cool.
So yeah, this is another application that I built, and I built this during the lockdown time, and I've used this for a few live streams that were there, Burning Man and stuff like that. I've actually used this for that.
Nice.
I've actually given this to a few of my friends. I would really love to give it to you as well. In fact,
I
I
will
actually
take
ran
it.
I ran this with you on the Modem Hive stage.
Oh yeah,
You
when you
remember
played
that?
with me. Yeah. Of
Exactly.
course,
The
I remember.
the few seconds that we had
The few seconds. Yeah, it
together.
was so short. Oh man.
I did run this application over there, and it was really awesome to see it over there. So this is actually, so as you see, I get this as an input inside Resolume, and I use a lot of things like this. I've completely added edge detection so that you can see the characterization of it slightly better. Again, it depends on how we actually put it as an output. I actually utilize two or three things together. And as you see, the other one that you were seeing from the Caracas project also is piped in over here. And as I bring that in, you can see that as well.
Oh yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
no,
the stage.
it's the other one. That's the stage.
Oh,
This
there we
is
go.
the one.
The
Yeah.
head.
So it's coming through with alpha and all that stuff. And as I was telling you, let me change the parameters inside the Unity application. So as you see over here, I have a few parameters that I work with, which is Brownian motion. It's a noise pattern that basically I simulate so that it goes
Randomly
following
movement.
that noise approach. I can do it with both position and rotation. So
I have to
ideally,
just say one thing on this Brownian motion, like getting good random movement is so important, and like I just need to iterate for a second, because like in Unreal, for instance, if I want to move something randomly, I have to build the whole thing myself. There's no Brownian movement like parameter or whatever. And it's like one of the things that is the most annoying thing for me when I build in Unreal is that like my noise patterns are not as like they're not as generative as I want them to be, because Brownian motion is not just a noise pattern, it's a generative idea, and it's like a very complex, it's not just noise, it's a very specific type of thing. And like when I move things, I just use like, Perlin noise or whatever. And it's like, it is random, it is organic, but it's missing that like kind of motion thing. So it's super cool to see that you have that as an option here. Sorry, I just, got excited for a
so
second.
this is actually no. In fact, I want to actually explain how Brownian motion is there within
Please.
Unity also, because there's a really amazing guy that actually does a lot of stuff within Unity. He actually works at Unity. His name is Kejiro. He's actually my guru.
Massive shout out to Kejiro. Massive shout out to Kejiro. The best. The best.
Yeah,
Not even
he's one of
the massive
the craziest guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's one of the main reasons we have the Spout plugin inside Unity running super smooth.
Right.
The NDA plugin as well. And the craziest fact is he's actually done nodes for both of them so that it can be used within the node-based editor as well.
No way. So you can he made it like more accessible almost.
He made it very accessible. And the thing is, he's got a lot of stuff that he basically has OSC running, and he does a lot of like virtual production himself, using visual
Yeah,
effects,
dude,
graphs.
his new stuff is insane. Like the stuff that he's doing with the all the AR application stuff. It's insane. It's insane. And he shares everything, right? He shares it all. It's like all accessible.
All on his GitHub.
Yeah.
It's all on his GitHub. So people want to remix his stuff. It's all under CCA. So people can definitely go and do it. In fact, that's what I've done. So the Brownian motion that's there, I've added a few things that basically is configurable to my set, to how I use it. And that's how I basically have made a little additions of my own. So if you see, this is actually just moving in this area with that Brownian motion running at a scale of 1 on X, Y, and Z. Okay. Now, just by changing the Z value, like by putting it at 3, you see how this thing is actually moving. It's coming front and back based on the Brownian motion and the frequency that it's actually set at. And this becomes a really good effect because a lot of people, when they actually see these objects float around, and then when they start seeing it come up close to them, like you see the output when you switch over to the output. I'm going to give a Brownian motion of 6 over here. This actually goes front, back, and then actually comes way up close to the face. That's when people are like, "Whoa, what's going on?"
Some
This
sort
is
of
not a loop
hologram
anymore.
or
It's not a loop anymore.
it's alive.
Something that's it's alive. Exactly.
100%.
And
100%. I mean, that's like the generative power is that things are
exactly.
never the
And
same.
and right now, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to change the fractal. The fractal is running at 3 right now. If I change the fractal to 4, if I change it to 5,
Starts.
it starts becoming more like, intense. So basically, like, you can basically like make it sync with music
With
without
the
it
music.
actually, it being connected to any kind of BPM.
Well,
Because you
it's
have,
like reaction is one thing, right? But then like nature, or not nature, but like processes that are organic, if you know how to manipulate them, like you said, like, making the frequency higher, making the fractal noise higher, you can match it in such a way to anything and it will be reactive to that thing, even if it's not directly connected to it, because music, BPM, frequency are all elements of like a natural order of things, right? They're all on the same concept of like a frequency of a sine wave going up and down, just like this noise wave is. So if you match it up, then you're reacting to the music in a different, it's like, instead of reacting to the music directly, you're reacting to the music like through other processes that the same,
exactly.
But at the same level of the music's being made. I love that. I love it.
Exactly. So in fact, that's something that I really got psyched within Resilium, because if you switch back to my other output, so this exact thing that's running in the background, the patch that's there. What I'm going to do is I'm going to actually make the opacity go up and down on that. Okay, and this opacity itself has quite a few things that really got to me, and I learned this after kind of getting in touch with other VJs and kind of figuring out the workflows. Because what I got as a reference was the fact that along with the BPM sync and stuff that you do, you can actually make LFOs to react to the music. That's what. So you see, this is actually going up and down. So you see the output is actually fading out. Now the best thing about it, so I can actually increase the speed, so you can actually see it go up and down really soon. Okay. Now what's even more crazier is the fact that actually there was something called envelope, which I never used. Okay. So envelope actually gives you it's like a 0 to 1, a remapping of the curve. Now this remapping, there were a lot of presets that I never looked into, but if you actually connect it to like an LFO over here or a noise, you can actually do a lot of stuff with it. So it's actually coming at a much higher frequency, if you notice over here. And this syncing with the BPM is something that you could also do, which kind of works in a different way altogether.
Yeah.
So
it's almost like instead of getting the raw quote unquote information from the output from the music, you're actually putting it through another processy. So it's like you're getting even more variation.
Exactly. It's exactly like what I was mentioning the other time, injecting. So this is kind of like the injecting process.
I love it.
So this is something that I really love to use since the last 1.5 years, enveloping your basic operations.
Animation. Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah. So then the couple of other things that I have is another instance of Unity. Let me see if that's something. Yeah, okay, here it is. So this is kind of like a shader that I've built. I kind of feel like it's a holographic shader it's the wrong keyboard. So if you notice, this is the same stage, but it's with a completely different shader that I built over here that takes in different parameters that I can use. So like, let's say if I want the value of the
Opacity.
you see that can come in. I can increase that or decrease that whenever I require. The craziest part is, I've actually piped it in a very different way, because this input that actually is coming, it's actually coming in as a spout receiver. And this spout receiver is coming from MadMapper.
Oh, wow.
Okay. That's the craziest thing. So the subtle things that we can actually do that make a few changes within real time also is really awesome from different applications. Like within MadMapper right now, I'm gonna enable this effect called shockwave that basically does this, like, this shockwave effect. But then when I bring it into Unity, if you look at it, it looks freaking amazing.
Whoa. Cool.
So that shader,
is that 2D, or is it displacing it, or is it just like a almost displacing it? It is displacing it. It must be displacing it. No?
If you see the actual 2D part of it, there's nothing happening. But the displacement is actually
displacing the texture.
Yeah. So that displacement is actually happening with the shader that's running from MadMapper's output.
Super cool.
So I pipe it that way. So I actually get input from different softwares as such, because apart from Shockwave, there are different other things like the cosine palette that they have is really awesome. So this, you can actually connect it with BPM again over here. I've done the cycle that's there on BPM. So it's running on 16 beats right now. So I can make it go to 4 BPM, 4 beats per minute, and then see it basically does this. But that inside Unity, if you see, changes it altogether because of the way that the shader reacts. You see? And that again, so this is taken as an output and piped into residue, which comes over here as this. So it's one more layer that comes in between. You see over here? There. And I use the image mask on top of it, which is running at 50 mask, so that we mask out the whole thing. And so this is the stage that was
over the edge. Super
exactly.
Cool.
Yeah. So there are different things that run with the real-time effects. As I told you, like, the Daggett mask is one of them. So I have different things like clocks. Okay.
Ooh.
So you see, this is like clockwork that's actually running. And if you look at the actual output.
Yeah.
I'm sorry?
No, continue. Sorry.
No, if you look at the actual output, the clocks are stuck right now. Okay. But when I enable Brownian motion, you'll immediately see that, like, that dependency that they don't have of each other, and then they're basically a living organism in itself.
Are these clocks are they just FBX animations?
Yeah.
The skeleton animation? You got it from Sketchfab?
Yeah. No way. That's a very crazy technique that I use. I take a lot of stuff from Sketchfab.
Oh yeah,
again,
that's great.
Things there under CCA, and then use them within my sets. Which
I mean, you're taking something and making it way more cooler than what it is, just as its own
remixing.
Thing. Remixing. I love it. No, this is really nice. I love these clocks. Super cool looking.
Yeah. So the clocks are one, and then there's this this cyborg kind of a lady that I have. So this is something new that I added in.
Cool.
And this lady, when she actually moves in up close, is really killer, because a lot of people, they were like, "What is that person?" That it. And what I did also was, you see this?
Oh, cool.
So when it comes up close, what I did also was at Caracas, I used a fisheye lens on this. So it kind of looked like very spherical
I love
nature. So people are like really amazed by that. Yeah.
It's really,
so on top of that,
Continue. I'll bring it up in a second. It's fine. Continue.
No, tell me. That's
I was gonna say I just think that for me, like one of the coolest things in real time and generative visuals is like the simple stuff of just like motion, right? Like being able to give something infinite motion that's always changing. You can't do that with rendered things. Yeah, you can maybe, you can render your loop like a 10-minute loop or a 5-minute loop if you're crazy, and maybe have like super crazy variation in the movement, but it's not organic. It is organic in that moment, but like the beautiful thing about math and like generative things is that it's in the moment that you start it, it's going to be specific to that moment. Whereas you start it today, tomorrow, in a week, in a month, you press play on that thing, you start the algorithm, you start the motion, it's different, And I know that we're aligned on this, but I feel like there's a spiritual element to it of like time, not being linear, and like, and like the place that you're in, the vibe that you're in, the environment that you're in, all the frequencies of all the party people, of all the GJs, it's going to affect maybe like on a super esoteric level, right? Like maybe not, you can't quantify it, but it's going to affect the generative code and like thing that's happening just because of like the way, things interact with each other, like on like a quantum level.
No, because at Caracas, when I use this specific animation that you see over there, right? What happened was like I know the parameters that I need to change to make it even more intense. So I make it intense, and people come up to me. They're like, "Bro, what is going on?"
Like they feel the difference, right?
You can feel it because they're like, we have never seen motion like that come alive. It's very few times that people actually use real time stuff, and the one reason why they really love seeing me at Caracas the past 3 years, the fact that they've seen real time stuff running on the last day, which is kind of the day that they want to experiment with their own minds also.
Yeah. I also think like, and again, it's not like what's better or worse. I just feel like I don't think that the audience knows the difference between a real-time patch and a loop. But their subconscious and their spirit, right, whatever that is, especially when they're open on like 1,200 mics or whatever it is, they're going to notice the difference. Maybe not visibly, like we can notice, like I see a loop, I know it's a loop, and other VJs, they know, and that's like between our own thing. But the audience, I feel, has a very strong connection to what they're seeing without understanding it, right? It's like almost like I have this discussion a lot about abstract art, like how do you tell a story with abstract art, right? How do you make an emotion with abstract art? Color, motion, feel, intention, all these things kind of come together, and the viewer in the audience doesn't know any of that. They're just looking at it, right? And it's the same thing with like real time versus not. It's like I feel like their subconscious or their higher form of being sees the difference in something that's moving organically, naturally, versus something that's looping in a thing. That's, my very distinct opinion.
Yeah. No, as I told you, right, in Goa, there's one person that I know by himself, like, he's a part of a collective that I'm in. He actually came up to me and he told me, dude, I've never seen people like change parameters the way that you change. It's because like I know the algorithm of what's going on over there,
right.
and kind of thinking that in between, especially me knowing the music of what I'm listening to,
you're in the place, you're in the thing, right?
Yeah.
You're there.
I'm never actually sitting down too much when I'm actually playing. I'm usually standing up, and I'm in the group when the thing is going on. Yeah. I've disconnected my controller once or twice because of that. But
yeah.
Yeah.
You gotta be careful.
So yeah, exactly. So moving on, I want to actually show a little bit through Magic as well. As I was mentioning, Magic. It's, I think, one of the most craziest applications that you could build stuff vanilla. Like if you want to just prototype stuff and immediately have that to work, this is the software for it. And why I think it's really awesome is because of the fact that I've built a few scenes already that helps me in my process for it. Again, you could do that and keep it ready and always have those scenes loaded up. So if you what you see over here is kind of like it's a multi mixer that runs multiple parts of the stage, and then this runs into multi-mix that either repeats it or it kind of makes it go through that sequence. Right now it's audio reactive also. As you see, it's reacting to my speech pattern,
to
and
speech,
I
yeah.
make it much faster and slower. And this has a lot of things that we can actually add into. Like if you notice the different things that they have within it, you have colors, you have effects that you can actually do. You can do a lot of geometry based stuff. You can layer out stuff. You can build out media. There are special things like OSC senders, GLSL shaders, fractals, spout receiver also. Again, sadly they don't have NDI, but yeah, it would be really nice for them to actually do something about that.
I'm surprised they don't
ISO
have NDI. It's a very, I mean, not that I know,
Yeah.
you know much better than me, but it's supposedly pretty easy to implement, right? That's like the whole point of it.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, it's what I've seen with this application. I'm not very sure because there are not many people that actually get it as well. How many VJs do you know that actually use
Not a
Magic?
lot. I not a lot. I mean, like even when you said Vakao uses it, like I didn't even know that he uses it because he uses so
No,
many
he
other.
used it a long time ago. He doesn't
Right,
use
he
it
doesn't
anymore.
anymore. Or he doesn't use it anymore, right?
Yeah.
That's what I thought. Yeah. Yeah, not many. Not many. I think that it's interesting because it's like a stripped down version of touch design. Well, not stripped down, but it's a already built version of Touch Designer where you don't have to like make everything yourself. It has all the things ready to go. I think it's a
And
super
it's
powerful
basically
software.
like,
The fact that it's
switching
the fact that it's node based just makes it more powerful than lots of other things that are out there.
True, and the thing is like adding like if you already have like a full patch that you've built, and then if you want to just edit stuff in between, let's say if I want the neon effect to come on, I can basically turn only that effect on, so only that is effect. I mean that doesn't get affected in the whole chain of actions that is
Oh,
being
that's
taken into.
cool. That's
I
very
really
cool.
like this thing because you can strip down your effect and you can add stuff and remove stuff in between your mix. And it's something that once in a while it's really nice to actually have people come in and out of different effects. And yeah, it's really nice that they have that addition. Also, the output that you're seeing switching between scenes automatically switches the output as
The
well.
output.
So
That's cool.
yeah. So this is another scene that I built with a lot more, like
Look at those.
based
Look
on
at
what I
those
do.
noodles. Oh, look at those noodles. Yeah, show it to me.
Like,
Show me the whole
It's
graph. Yeah.
it's all over. Yeah, so that goes into the multi-mix, which basically has more or less the same effect, but this is kind of like a stepper that I built that goes into it. So let's say in Resolume, if you see, let me turn down a few layers so that you can just see that. So when we add the magic sender, so adding that effect onto this, so you see you're basically having both of them interlace on top of each other, creating a really good effect altogether. Again, within Magic Sender, I can do a lot of stuff within that, but I also try to keep it like distinct so that you can have some effects that run from the Magic's output as well. So on this, I think I've added the recolor, so you could basically change the palette altogether of it, so you can see like
Wait a
that
second.
change.
I'm confused. Are you sending the No, but this is coming from Magic, right? This is coming from Magic?
Yeah,
So you changing
Yeah.
Okay, so you're changing the color after it comes from Magic, you're saying.
yeah. So
Okay, got
so
you.
basically,
Sorry. I didn't
basically
understand.
my workflow has the Resolume running all the effects.
Yes.
All effects run on Resolume, and then either Resolume gives the final out or MadMapper gives the final out. That's how I run. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. So it's basically all the different kind of chaser kind of effects that I that I kind of do is using Magic.
Yeah, it's
But
the bread and butter of projection mapping.
yeah, and yeah, within Magic again, as I wanted to show you guys, there is the option to actually run shaders
Whoa.
as well. Yeah, so that's the awesome part. So what I want to show you is like I can just change the output over here, the graphics resolution to like let's say 5000 to 10 over 1080, and we have that resolution running. So in real time, you actually change the resolution. It's actually running in that resolution right now. If we actually go into Resolume and we see the resolution, it's huge. You see,
Looks
compared to the actually you can just look on the resolution over here. It changes up. So that way, getting and as wanted to show as well, I changed different. So this is kind of like a list of shaders that I have amassed over the time. So let's do exit matrix. So this is kind of like a cube matrix
oh wow,
simulation.
super cool.
So this again is running okay with the recolor. Let's remove that. So that comes in as well. So you know, it's really awesome to mix in this, and on top of that, you know what synesthesia does as well.
Of course.
So that's yeah. So that's a really awesome add-in to have with this as well with all the other
So
add-ins. So
running shaders in Magic, do you have to convert them or anything? You just copy paste the actual HLSL?
I usually
Patch
copy
them?
paste it. There are a few times that I might have to do a little bit of tweaking, but most of them run out of the box.
Interesting.
Yeah, we copied. It's basically just a text file that you build and you put it into the GLSL folder of Magic, and it would automatically run it.
Yep.
Yeah, there are a few things that are not supported on it. So like you can work around it, or just not use that shader. But that's one really good thing about going on Shader Toy, which is an awesome tool. Like
Yeah. Amazing.
really shout out to them as well, because like I've been on Shader Toy, and I've looked at all the work that people have put into their shaders.
How crazy is it when you see like a shader that's like photorealistic and you're just like, how can you do this without like path tracing and fucking like proper triangles? And it's just like small little tweaks in the ray marching. It's like, it's crazy. There's some of the stuff there is like, it looks like a proper like rigged animated character. And you're like, there's no skeleton. There is no control points. There's nothing. It's just like just pure lines of code. And it's just wild. It's really wild.
Yeah. So yeah, that's one of the main reasons why I really love to use real-time stuff, and shaders is a big part of it, because like manipulation of that in real time is something that's really awesome. And the thing is, what, in real time basically, so how Magic works is like when you load a shader, it kind of makes a copy and sits on its local temp. So you can actually go into the shader code, you can alter the shader code, and then there's this one button on it which basically lets you reload the shader, if you see. So you just click on that, it reloads the shader with the new properties, and it's really nice
Wow.
to actually work that in real time. Yeah.
Super cool.
In fact, Kajiro, he has this different way of working with shaders. He actually uses this. I forget what the tool is called. Hexler, I think it's from them.
Oh
They have
yeah. Yeah. It's not called shit. It's called oh, it's a good one. Let's find it, because it's Hexler are the guys who make Touch OSC.
yes, correct.
He's I've actually met him in person. We had a Code Life with a K.
Code Life, exactly. Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
So Code Life is another tool that's really awesome. Like having that run your
Feed that.
HLSL or GLSL stuff, and then
Yeah.
feed that in, because that has spout out, so you can. And I think it also does have NDI right now, so you can
I would
actually feed it.
imagine.
Yeah, you can feed it into Unity and stuff like that. In fact, what I did at Modem was kind of like that itself, right? Take the input from the VJ and basically put that on the surfaces of the 3D models uh, because they were UV'd in a nice way. And most of it was shader stuff that's running. Yeah, the tile shader.
Tile shader. Got to tile that stuff up. Super
Yeah,
cool, man.
yeah.
It's really awesome to see your different processes. I feel like I could spend hours with you just looking at Unity and seeing because at the end of the day, like a game engine's a game engine. It doesn't matter if it's Unity or Unreal. It's a matter of taking processes and different techniques and workflows and applying them to whatever you're in, and just like seeing how you're playing with things it's just inspiring a lot of things in my head. Because my goal is to be, if not 100%, then at least 75%, 65% of my rendering is in Unreal. And all the texturing, shading, post effects, there we go, is all inside of Touch Designer. But it's hard to wrap your head, making content in a game engine is obviously straightforward, right? That's what it's for. But making content that's generative, that's changeable, that's parameterable, that's going to be interesting, it's a whole different thing. I'm doing a lot of physics simulations because to me that it just feels very organic and it goes really well with mapping. But it's like, okay, so gravity and curl noise, but now what else can I do with it? How else can I create something interesting with the same, inside of the same thing? Because just pressing a button and having a simulation happen is cool and interesting, but now how do I control the simulation in a smart way that makes me be able to play with it? So it's not just pressing a button, right? I want to play with things. I want to move sliders. I want to move knobs, that affect things. Like you were saying with the fractal noise of the Brownian motion, you want to be able to control it in a way that when you change it, it's going to be a big difference. You're going to see something change,
Exactly. Yeah, that's the real I can say gem of real time.
Yeah.
The configurability and the way you can actually take things from A to B is through C.
A to B through C. I love that. Yeah. That's like the programmer in you coming out,
There are quite a few other applications like this that I've built, and I'm actually working with another friend of mine, Matt, Tetril Vision.
Okay.
So we're planning on actually building a small package and publishing it by maybe the end of the year.
Hell yeah, that's fucking awesome. I mean, I'd love, like I said, I'm a Jew. I'll take anything I can get for free. It's kind of the thing you were saying about collaboration before, and this is another testament to the top people at the highest level. Getting other people's patches and other people's toys, and then manipulating them in the way that I would do with my style, with my kind of techniques. That's so fun, and it makes my life obviously easier, but it just it allows you to kind of experience the other person's visuals and how you programmed it, right? You programmed it for yourself and the way that you do your visuals. When I get to play with that, then I'm now discovering kind of through you different types of realities. It's a very and this is actually what I wanted to get into you a little bit. It's a very kind of quantum kind of idea of again, these patches that you're making are running off of math functions, organic functions, simulations, which are all based on nature, right? And nature is an infinite possibility, endless resource of changing things and altering things. So just inherently, when you give that process to somebody else, they're going to now be able to generate infinite ideas and different things from their own experience, from their own perspective. So Sharat, like, what do you think about spirituality? What do you think about, the idea of art and creation and expression throughout spirituality? Where does the computer and the ghost in the machine meet you?
I think it hasn't met me yet. No, but I can definitely say there is a lot of things that go with the ideology of computer science as such, because being a programmer, I think, has kind of given me uh, it's a gift that I have, that basically I can think in different directions, and kind of make a selection of a path, and kind of, go towards it. And that's the kind of, spirituality that I've got out of computer
Mm-hmm.
science, which is basically, thinking in multiple directions, and kind of choosing your path that you want to go towards.
Hmm.
There are so many times in which I've gone to a wrong path, but then most of the times I've kind of, gone towards the right path.
Hmm.
It's been a hell of a journey, I can say, coming from the days of I've actually made games on PowerPoint also. So coming from those days, to actually building stuff on next gen hardware, and running them, and getting things to run at a super amazing frame rate, and people to have those experiences to be engulfed. I think that itself has been a really amazing spiritual journey for me. Um, uh, a huge shout out to my family, my friends, for sticking up to the kind of nonsense that I've been. But it's something that I had to like undergo, because
Hmm.
I would say it's my path of life.
I think you're in a very unique and special position where, the two worlds of like corporate commercial programming, game industry. It's a very specific type of world. Not necessarily less spiritual per se, but it just is a different type of experience. It's corporate, it's commercial. Having that on one side, and then utilizing the different things that you learned and gained through that one side, and putting it into art, putting it into the festival world of like, transformation, and a more quote unquote spiritual aspect, I think is very unique. I think I don't know if you can zoom out and see that. I'm sure you can, but it's a very special thing, and it's karmic in a way, or karmatic. I don't know what the actual term is for that. The verb is for that, but it's a karma induced thing, because you're like,
Right.
you're like taking all these things in the business, or let's say the bad world, not necessarily, but like the less spiritual world, and you're learning and you're gaining and you're getting, and maybe it's like not necessarily pushing your karma forward, right? Because it's not necessarily benefiting, but then you're taking all these things and infusing it into like your good karma, right? Like in the festivals and whatever. And it's like such a beautiful like thing, it's really powerful. It's like you're really you're managing to also like do the thing that you are meant to do, right? Like coding and kind of this puzzle thing that you're talking about, but you're enabling your higher self to express itself in a very powerful way.
Alon, you have no clue like how much of a release it is for me to actually perform. Like when I perform, I feel like, wow, I've got things out of me. Because like, there are things inside of me that I keep thinking a lot. I keep, making them on my system. Maybe I post things on Instagram, but when I actually go and perform live, and when I give a performance to a crowd, I feel content in itself.
Of course, of course. What's your take on Hinduism? Not necessarily as a religion, but just kind of like as a way of life. I don't know enough about it to really get into a deep conversation. I will give one anecdote of Ganesh. I love Ganesh. I have lots of his little figurines in my house and my altar and stuff like that. I wouldn't say I pray to him in a necessarily thing, but I have him in my mind. Because I've had experiences with the entity, you know, on a very deep level. One small story that I'll share that I've shared many times, but I think it's a cool one, is ZNA festival in Portugal. It's a psytrance festival. Eric Agid, an amazing sculptor, made a 2 meter by 3 meter massive Ganesh statue out of mud, out of local mud from the actual festival. And I did projections on it. And when I was setting it up, you know, and this is like many years ago, it's like 6 years ago, I think, I was spiritual in my own way, but definitely not on a spiritual path in that sense, you know, kind of more like excited by psychedelics and this mind altering thing, but not directed. So, you know, I was very skeptical, and I was also coming from an Orthodox Jewish background of like, fuck all that, I don't want to have anything to do with it. And I had this experience where it was late at night, everything was closed. It was like a day or two before the festival started, and I'm like by myself, classic VJ, by myself with my projector and my laptop, trying to get everything going. And I'm rolling my joint, you know, because it's the only thing that's keeping me sane. And I'm like, you know, and I'm like rolling it, and I'm really into it. And then I'm about to smoke it, and I don't have a lighter, and everything's closed. Nobody's around me. And I'm like, fuck, like, I'm gonna have to go all the way back to camp. It's like a 15-minute walk. I'm so in it right now. If I leave, I'm gonna, you know. And I get up for a second, and I walk around a little bit to see if maybe one of the stores is open that can give me a thing. Nothing. I come back, and I sit down, and in front of me is like 5 lighters. No joke. Like just a bunch of lighters on the floor, you know? And I was like, okay, this is like obviously Ganesh, like, you know, it doesn't matter how it happened, but it's like directly about. And then I, you know, as I started learning more about Ganesh and like his purpose and how he operates, it was very clear that it was kind of like a sign or some sort of like, you know, thing. And yeah, obviously the skeptical part of me is like, that was always there and I didn't notice it, and I'm noticing it, but it affected me in a way that it opened my mind up to like something a little bit more, you know. I don't have to understand it. I don't even have to like necessarily accept it or believe in it, but it affected me in that way, you know. So please, you know, share with me kind of like your experience with Hinduism and growing up in this culture and where it meets you today.
Well, one thing is the fact that I think I mentioned that that I come from a Brahmin family, which is the Orthodox priest family of the Hindu religion. So coming from that, I can say is definitely the fact that I've got a little more insights within the religious space. I believe that God actually lives inside of you. So that's what I believe in. And the you know, it's your way of taking it, but then as much as you believe that the God is inside you, you start believing in yourself. So that's one of the takeaways that I've had from Hinduism as such. Apart from the fact that, you know, we have an ample of gods that that are represented, but yeah, as you say, you know, Ganesh, Shiva, and Vishnu are the main you can say deities
Archetypes.
that usually people go to. And there are quite a few temples as such in India that are devoted to them, and it's kind of, you know, slightly different way. So I can say in Hinduism they have 2 different calendars that are followed as well. There's the sun calendar and the moon calendar. So my family actually follows the moon calendar.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, and most of the people actually follow the sun calendar in India. So
Oh,
there are
in
a
the
few.
world as well. I mean, like the Gregorian calendar
Exactly.
is sun-based for sure.
Yeah. No, it's actually embedded in my name also, Chandra. So
What is
Chandra
that?
actually means Chandra means moon.
Wow, I didn't know that. That's so cool. That's
Yeah.
awesome. That's a nice.
So
Your Sharat's full name is Sharachandra.
yeah. So our family generally follows the moon calendar, and the festival dates are kind of slightly different. The Hinduism has a lot of festivals that I can say, and people joyously celebrate that quite a bit in India. Uh, there are a lot of holidays because of that, and people love to share food. Um, Generally spend time with family, like how regular holidays are outside. But I think it's a lot more in India because of the number of holidays that are there, and festivals that people celebrate. Like there's a festival of light, which is Diwali. Then a festival of color, which is
Yeah,
Holi.
holy. Yeah,
Yeah, so there are a lot of festivals that basically uh, enrichen you in different ways, I can
yeah,
say,
yeah.
because
Elevate.
the colors, yeah, they elevate you in a different way. Because if you look at the Festival of Colors, that was one of the first times that. So I'm actually allergic to the regular colors that people use, so I kind of stay
You
away
can't go.
from it.
Oh no.
Yeah, but I do enjoy, like, people messing around with colors, and that's how I use my projector to do that.
Hmm. Was that
Yeah.
something that you were like you felt like when you started getting into visuals, like, oh, you're kind of celebrating Holi every time you turn on the projector?
Yeah. It looks like that. In fact, up until 2 years ago, I was using like really shitty projectors.
Hmm.
I've actually used, like, on really big stages, a 5,000 lumen projector,
Hmm.
and I've had to do a lot of, like, crazy things because of that. Kind of doubling your exposure and stuff like that,
Yeah,
so things are
yeah,
more
yeah, yeah, yeah,
brighter,
yeah.
and yeah. So
Contrast up
uh,
to 2.
exactly. And there was one time that was really crazy. It was somewhere during Holi time. There was a small party that was arranged outside of Bangalore, and I went to do visuals on that. So it was the first time I actually did visuals on a stage that had LEDs embedded in the back.
Hmm.
Okay, so the projector by itself was a really really shitty 4,000 lumens projector, and that projector basically had G and B. It didn't have R running on it.
What? You had no
It
reds?
was it had no red. So you know what I did? After half an hour of using it, I basically told the the stage guys, bro, turn the lights off on the LEDs and turn only the reds on. And
Oh,
that
and
worked.
it like made like a highlight or something almost.
The highlight contrast was really amazing
That's
because
really
it was.
cool.
So
That's wild.
as I said, I love to mix colors.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I want to linger a little bit more on Hinduism because I feel like you're such a good person to talk to about it. Um, like you were saying before, like God is inside of me, and that's kind of like we're all God. I also subscribe to this. I think that to me, it's very clear. Like especially if you don't subscribe to any religion or like belief system, I think the most basic thing that you can understand just by experiencing life is that we're an integral part of nature, and nature is an integral part of us. And to me, God on a very basic level is nature, is the existence of all things.
Mhm.
Do you have any like insights or maybe a parable from the Bhagavad Gita or any other types of scriptures that like kind of I'm putting you on the spot. I'm sorry, but
Ah,
I just something along these lines of kind of like Hinduism outside of all the crazy stories and wars and different deities. I think that the base level of it, like the idea of karma, the idea of yoga, all the things in yoga, all the like the heightened things, all the things in Buddhism. I feel like there's such truths in it, and in my culture in Judaism, I feel the same way. Like I don't subscribe to any of the quote unquote Jewish religious things, but I do subscribe to the core values and the very basic spiritual ideas, right?
right. Well, I can tell you one thing. It might, maybe it might not be 100% true what I'm saying, but
We'll take
because like
75%. It's
we'll
fine.
take 75%. Yeah, that sounds good. So uh, if you look at it actually, the Bhagavad Gita is what we have as a holy scripture, right?
Hmm.
This is actually, so you've heard of the Mahabharata, which is
The
another book
Mahabharata.
that we,
Yeah.
yeah. So the Bhagavad Gita is actually a part of Mahabharata. Okay,
Uh-huh.
it's
Uh-huh.
when
Like a section.
it's it, I'll tell you how it came into existence. It's basically so it's Mahabharata is a story of basically 10 brothers.
Hmm.
It's a family story. It's
Hmm.
basically two sets of brothers. One set of brothers and is like 10, and the other set is like hundreds, and there are like thousands of them. Okay,
Wow.
so there's a family feud that runs between them, and it basically ends up, so basically who has to run India,
Hmm.
which as such, there's a feud between both of them, and they have a huge battle that lasts for months and months.
Right.
And Arjuna, which is one of the brothers from the 10 brothers,
Hmm.
he is riding a chariot which is being manned by Krishna, the god
Hmm.
Krishna.
Yeah, with the arms.
No, Krishna is the
No,
guy with the
that's
peacock
Vishnu.
feather.
The peacock feather head. Yeah, 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 of course.
Yeah. So, who's
Krishna's like the
an incarnation
ultimate
of
god,
Vishnu, as you say.
but he's like the
Exactly.
main god, right? Krishna.
Yeah. He's an incarnation of Vishnu.
Uh-huh.
Vishnu came back to Earth 10 times, okay, and he
Uh-huh.
came in different forms.
Uh-huh.
And Krishna is one of the last forms of it, okay.
Okay.
And when he came down, yeah, he was part of Mahabharata. And during this battle, he's riding the chariot, and then it comes to an instance in which Arjuna has to take a decision of I think killing one of his brothers. The opposing team is his brothers
Mm-hmm.
also. So
Right.
he comes to that sense in which he has to do it, right?
Right.
And then Krishna actually stops
Yeah.
time. He stops time
Wow.
and then tells him about life and how it has to be led and stuff like that.
Like
And
right
that
before he's
is
about to kill his brothers.
right before he goes into the battle to kill his brothers.
Uh-huh. 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 Wow.
And he's in that emotion of should I do it, should I not?
Right.
Krishna
Right.
stops time and then gives him advice, and that advice is the Bhagavad Gita.
Ah, interesting. So like the download that he gave to Arjuna is the Bhagavad Gita? Oh, that's so I didn't know that. I didn't know that. That's really fascinating. It's so interesting. It's like almost like the information that you would want when you have to make a really big decision, right? Like light and dark, like the
Yeah.
resolution of light and dark, and how does that play?
Yeah.
Interesting,
Yeah.
interesting. It's so cool. Thank you for that. Yeah, I'm so my experience in India is very limited. As an Israeli, it should be more, but I only went to Goa in 2020 or 2019, right before the pandemic, and I was in Goa for a month, and then I went to Hampi for maybe like a few days, like 5 or 6 days,
which is
and
a really awesome place as well.
dude, I was so like again like this is already later in my spiritual journey. I'm this is a few years after my Ganesh experience, and kind of like slowly understanding more and more where I fit into this kind of world of spirituality and building it more for myself. And really like the biggest lesson that I learned is that all traditions and all cultures have information in them that's embedded and that's colored with religion and dogma, but underlying there's like a very strong truth. And when I went to Hampi, most of Hampi is like Ganesh and Hanuman, the monkey god.
Yes.
There's not a lot of Krishnas and stuff there. It's mostly Ganesh and Hanuman. And I went to one of the big Ganesh temples, and there was a real elephant there, and they were doing some like it was like, I don't know what holiday it was, but like you said, there's like a holiday every week, but there was something going on there, and they were giving out food to everybody. Like it was just like a soup kitchen almost for anybody. So there was so many interesting different types of people, not only like local Hampi people, but also people that like, you know, pilgrimaged up to Hampi, and you know, and some tourists and things like that. And it was just like, it's just special environment. And like when you go,
Hampi is actually one of our great archaeological sites, because like, you know, there's a lot of history behind it.
Yeah, tons of old shit there.
Yeah, you can see there's this old chariot also. You might have seen that in the center.
I didn't see chariot. I saw a massive Ganesh rock statue that was like a few thousand years old. It was like huge, like massive one. But so when I was in this temple, you know, I got the dot on my head, and I was ushered into you get ushered into like a little bit of a pathway. Yeah. And part of the pathway was going into like the little place where they pray. That's, you know, there's tons of like gold and silver and all these like really expensive things. And like there's a few babas, and they're kind of sitting there, and they're like mumbling to themselves with the beads, and people are coming in, sitting down, giving some money, and then going out. And like, you know, in Judaism, like in my culture and religion, you don't really let outsiders in. Like you can, right? There's different parts of Judaism that do that, but in a general sense, you don't really. It's like, it's for the Jewish people. You know, we even have a word for people that aren't Jewish, goyim, right? And here I was welcomed, brought in, regardless of my language, my color, my race, my tradition. It doesn't matter. It's like, are you here? You're here? Great. You're a part of us. Here's your dot. Here's your thing. Give us a little bit of a donation, and we'll bless your life. You know, and like something about that, you know, and like I guess like Christianity is kind of similar, where you can just go into church, right? But I don't know, there was something so welcoming about like the way that the priests were kind of like ignoring the fact that I'm a white guy, you know, that doesn't speak their language, and just like, oh, you're here? Pray to Ganesh. You know, like it just like did this switch in my head of like, you know, this is like not, you know, praying and believing and honoring the deities or gods or ideas even that you put on a pedestal, that you acknowledge as a higher power, is not specific to any culture. It's not specific to any creed or any color. It's a given right as a human being to do that, you know? And it was a very strong lesson that kind of followed me throughout my life, and still does to this day. And it healed. That was one part of the thing. A lot of other things in my life have healed this kind of thing of my trauma of like, you know, religion's bad and belief is bad, because I was indoctrinated from a young age and had to kind of like push it away to be able to, you know, live my life as a free person. But as I get older, I always come back to this kind of like thing of like, I want to be spiritual. I want to have my beliefs and my traditions and my ways of praying and things like that. And, you know, the experience in Hampi was one of like the very strong experiences of reminding me that I can pray however I want. I can have any deity that I want in my head, or any idea that I want in my head. And there's not like one way to do it. It's not like black and white, you know?
Yeah. So the thing that I believe is, okay, so you went to Hampi. You went for a reason. Yeah. And that reason was basically that you had to be there.
Yeah.
And that you being there changed your whole
trajectory.
Mentality.
Yeah.
Exactly, your whole trajectory. This can happen by just closing your eyes as well. That can happen. Like it is like possible, and exactly, it's all within you. So in fact, that's one of the main things that they teach you in yoga. You basically have to be in the place and not be in the place at the same time.
Right.
So I've done a bit of yoga myself. So I was actually I was there for 2 years in an ashram, and we used to get up in the morning at 5 o'clock and do yoga, and there's this thing called shavasana that they
Shavasana,
do.
yeah, the
Yeah.
relaxing.
So shavasana, yeah, it's basically you are like after the yoga experience, you basically are resting your body so
Mm-hmm.
that everything resets.
Mm.
There was this one time in which that reset actually made me go to sleep.
Okay, that's good.
And the thing is, that sleep was an out of body experience for me
Mm.
because I slept and I could feel me come out of my body and then look at myself and look at all the other people that were doing yoga with me and then come back to my body. And I was like, wow, this
Mm.
is something that, and this is in an ashram,
Right,
you're
right,
just, you eat in the night, you go sleep, you come back in the morning, you
right.
do this. That's about it. And it was very, I think, a different experience altogether for me to kind of feel that. And these are the things that have kind of led me to the fact that being a calm person over time.
Keeping your composure.
Exactly. Yeah.
So one last thing I want to talk to you a little bit about. We kind of mentioned it throughout the cast, but modem and psytrance in general, and it's very apropos to talk about it after spiritual experiences. We've talked about this a bunch when we were together, but the idea of a festival and a dance floor as a temple, the idea of a festival and dance floor as a ceremony, as a holiday, as it were. I mean, in my life, I've been in San Pedro ceremonies, and I been to Hampi, and I practice spirituality. In my life, as I recall it, the most heightened moments of spirituality, even if I didn't know that that's what it was at that moment, and spirituality is a bad word, but the heightened moment of my highest form of self was on a dance floor. I was on lots of mind-altering substances, and I was like maybe not sleeping for a few days, but that experience of oneness, togetherness, unity, not only with the people around me, but with myself, was from dancing for 12 hours straight to this, to the psytrance beat of the drum, around all these people inside of this sacred space. How has that affected you in your life? Psytrance as a kind of like this very high frequency experience.
Well, I can say the initial few days, the initial few years of me listening to psytrance was more with family, like close friend of close group of friends
Mm-hmm.
that I knew. So it was kind of limited thing altogether.
Mm-hmm.
But
Okay.
the first time that I actually had an experience which kind of made me feel okay, this is actually a ceremony was when I
Mm-hmm.
attended a ceremony that Goa Gil performed.
Oh, nice.
And yeah,
In
that
India?
really made, yeah, he was in India, so
Mm-hmm.
he performed in Bangalore, and it
Nice.
was really the time for me that I kind of figured out that the music by itself can change your state of mind and kind
Oh,
of
yeah.
feel different things altogether, because I did feel a lot of different things. But
Mm-hmm.
then I think last year, Caracas, um, um, man, after the festival, I mean, the last set of the festival was
Yeah.
Sector Aurea.
Oh,
So
yeah, of course. We've talked about Sectio on the show before as well. They were just
yes,
like
yeah.
another level.
So that was the third time that I'm hearing uh, a 6 hour set from
Mm-hmm.
them. And that was the first time that I actually cried on the dance floor.
Oh.
It was because of the music kind of made me feel a lot of feelings, and that it kind of made me feel connected with them, and made me feel like I was one of their closest friends,
Hmm.
you know, that I know them from like ages, and then it kind of just, melded together. It made me
Hmm.
feel so humble altogether. I just went and I hugged them after that
Oh.
because they're actually really close friends of mine. And then Christian, he actually hugged me, and then he didn't let go of me for a very long
Oh.
time. help me. And he was
That's so
like,
nice.
yeah, we need this. So
Can you
I definitely,
can you quantify that feeling, like in words or in some sort of something? It's hard, I know, but you're a very
it's very
smart guy.
hard.
It's hard. It's hard.
It's very hard.
It's hard.
Yeah, what I can say is, uh, I don't know. It's a very confusing,
Very confusing.
state. Yeah,
Did
but
did
I
you
can
as a
definitely.
did, sorry, what?
No, but as such, like, over the years, I've definitely felt that feeling of ritualistic practices that can happen with the dance floor. And I know me adding to that experience has also been like,
Mm,
fueling the fire and kind of, keeping things alive and kind of different
beautiful.
and new altogether.
Yeah, like when you're part of it, you kind of get to see it a little bit differently, right? Because you're like
Exactly.
literally projecting the experience, like
Exactly.
literally
I've,
projecting the
I've been
experience.
I've been the crowd, and I've also been a part of the
Production.
organized,
Yeah.
yeah, of the production. So I've seen both kind of worlds, and I think I would say like I've been of the crowd much lesser compared to the
Behind the
to
scenes.
the production.
Yeah, me
Yeah.
too. I mean, now I kind of ruined it for myself. It's hard for me to be at a festival without having a job. I don't know what to do with myself.
Exactly.
Just one last thing that it just kind of I just thought about when you were younger in Saudi Arabia and your father was kind of going through all these kind of culture lessons and you were learning through the Indian school. Did you go to temple? Like, did you go to pray or temple or anything like this? Was there
But we
more
didn't
than
have
just
temples in Saudi Arabia.
yeah, right?
That's a sad.
They wouldn't allow those.
Yeah. But we did have like a small photo of gods that my mom had got down.
Like an altar in your house.
Yeah, like a small altar. She smuggled those things into Saudi Arabia.
Hell yeah, good for your mom. I just
Yeah.
I asked because I feel like a lot of time, not a lot of times, but from my childhood, not whenever, but a lot of times on the dance floor when I'm in these experiences, they kind of trigger memories of like being a kid in synagogue and praying. Completely different, right? But it's like almost like the feeling is somehow the same of like my essence of my being my essence and my being's intention is to talk to a higher power, is to communicate with a higher power, right? When you're praying, right? And then when I'm on the dance floor, it's so subconscious. Like I'm just dancing. I'm just trying to be in the moment. But then my essence and my experience is like blasted into this experience of like, I want to be connected to this higher power, whether it's
That,
being,
that's true. Like I can give you an example of that because so when I was performing at Chennai, there was this really big festival called Last Indian Village that I did visuals for. They had like a 150-foot long LED panel that they'd given me. It was really wide as well. So I was like, awesome, let's go mad.
sick. Yeah.
And I had this 3D model of Shiva that I have in my sets. So basically, what I did was Shiva has a third eye
Mm-hmm.
that basically sits on top over here.
Mm-hmm.
So I made that emissive and
Mm.
basically had that go with the beat. Okay.
Glowing.
The thing is, as soon as I spoke to all the DJs beforehand, the day before, and I asked, "Does anyone have a Shiva track?" Now, one guy, Zyce, I think that's
Okay.
the artist name. So
Okay.
he told me that he has one. I'm like, okay, awesome. I don't know what kind of connection that actually happened because the VJs here, the DJs over
Far away.
here, I
Yeah.
didn't know
Yeah. Yeah.
he was actually going to play the track, but I had that application ready
Right. For that
when
moment.
couple of seconds before he actually played the track. And then when he played it, I'm like, yeah, turn all the lights off. I told the guys who were doing the
Lighting.
strobe lights,
Yeah.
turn it
Turn it
off.
off.
I made him turn it off, and I just put the Shiva over there. Okay,
Mm.
you will not imagine how people like. For me, it's kind of like a different thing altogether because I'm seeing the reaction of people, and all I can see are people like this.
Like praying, like full on going into it. Wow. So
That was some
powerful.
really powerful experience. Yeah.
So powerful. Yeah, because we're conduits. And I think that a lot of music and DJs, I know that stage designers, a lot of them feel the same way. So I think a lot of DJs too as well, but we're conduits, right? Like, it's not about a specific type of God or a specific type of religion or belief system. We're just conduits for people to experience good, for feeling good, to let out the bad and get as much good as they can, and that's kind of a very I think it's a very special place to be, because we have a direct connection to that goodness, right? Because we're a conduit for it, but also we're enabling other people to connect to it as well. Whether it's through a Shiva 3D model, or even if it's through strobing beautiful colors that resonate with the music. It doesn't matter. It's the dance floor is a sphere of energy, right? Doesn't matter if you believe in religion, it just is. People are literally moving up and down and dancing. There's literally frequencies coming out of the speakers. There's literally frequency going onto the stage. The stage has crystals in it. The stage has flashing LEDs in it. The stage has sacred geometry, whatever it is. All these things are working together and creating this like extreme soup of connecting to a higher power, whatever you want to call it, to a good, to the goodness.
It's the neural soup.
It's the neural soup. Yeah, the noodle soup for sure. Wow, Sharat, thank you so much for doing this. I know it's really late with you, so I really appreciate you keeping strong till the end. I love you so much, dude. I really hope we get to see each other soon. You're such a good friend, and it's so nice to catch up.
Same here, bro. It's really nice to catch up with you, and a really awesome job with Visual Cast as well.
Thank you.
I'm really humbled to be here.
What an awesome conversation. I'm always blown away by the amount of insight and information that people have and share. It's always such a pleasure to talk to such a beautiful soul and get into such a unique and interesting conversation about what we all love. Thank you so much to Sharat for taking the time to speak to us. Thank you so much to Matt Smash for the intro and outro music. Next week on the podcast, we have one of the biggest OGs of the visual scene. All I can say is that he's a cat. See you next week.